Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host. Rock the out of those drums, Meg. Jack White is one of the few remaining rock gods still producing music that turns heads as soon as it's announced, and that's with good reason given his reputation over the last quarter century. The White Stripes are often referred to as not only one of the best bands of the 2000s, but one of the most innovative groups of all time. Their run from White Blood Cells to Icky Thump in particular gaining widespread mainstream acclaim. Following the Northern Lights live album and the White Stripes' subsequent disbandment, it didn't take long for Jack White to embark on his own solo career, dropping Blunderbuss in 2012. Blues rock hits like Freedom at 21, 16 Saltines, and Love Interruption ruled the charts and the Grammys, so naturally Jack's 2014 follow-up Lazaretto swung into the opposite direction. Loaded with 1940s style blues and mixed in with Baroque instrumentation and crunchy alt-rock, it was a risk that paid off, and it has some of Jack's best material of his career. Following projects with The Dead Weather and an acoustic collection, Jack returned to the solo arena in 2019 with the expansive Boarding House Reach, still looked at today as his most divisive record. With a densely experimental and rich oral palette, it's a challenging listen, but it features cutting jams and a weirdly unwieldy genre bend to it that is admirable. 2022's double release of Fear of the Dawn and Entering Heaven Alive presented us a project that mirrored itself. The former diving back into Jack's jet black garage rock aesthetics, just for the touch of his intriguing stylistic deviations. And the latter is a full-blown folk rock record that, while not my favorite, makes a strong case for Jack's versatility and willingness to dial it back. Which brings us to a few weeks ago where Jack slipped a white disc into customers' purchases at Third Man Records in Detroit, which contained his newest material, and the reception from the select fans that got to experience it was astounding, with many labeling the new batch of tracks a return to form for the singer-songwriter. And now with No Name fully releasing to the public worldwide, I think this one is special. It's a garage rock throwback that deserves to be celebrated because this might be the best thing that Jack White has recorded since Elephant. The biggest strength in this album's musical foundation is its back-to-basics approach to three-chord rock, but in order for that to work, the mix, the arrangement, and the production elements need to be organic and natural, and Jack totally lets the instrumentals breathe without giving them too much room to be spacious and atmospheric like his most recent efforts. Old Scratch Blues is a groove-based, hard rock blues track that leads this record off on a huge high note, the crashing drums complementing Jack's simultaneously melodic licks and punishing riffs. The edgier abrasive touch of Bless Yourself ditches the slick polish of Jack's blues jams for something far more chaotic and noisy, yet the song structure at the core is so strong that the in-your-face aesthetics chug along with authority rather than aimlessness. Bombing Out and Missionary are so awesome, coming together as grimy, wickedly lo-fi throwbacks to the early White Stripes days. Then there's the merging of folk rock leanings and traditional blues with the hard rock cherry on top on It's Rough on Rats, if you're asking. Easily one of the best songs Jack's ever laid down. The garage rock revivalism on Archbishop Harold Holmes is incredibly compelling, providing us a bouncy, upbeat return to Jack's more tongue-in-cheek style work. Maybe What's the Rumpus didn't work for me as much musically, as the instrumental felt a little derivative of other stuff on this record and on Fear of the Dawn, but overall I didn't mind. Because when you have the sublime country blues of Underground, the mysteriously funky and multi-phased Number One with a Bullet, and the epic bombast of closer Terminal Arch Enemy Endling, it's clear that Jack is at his simplest yet most dynamic on this project. With such an admittedly easy premise of a rip-roaring blues rock record, we may not think that lyrical content is something that will be given as much credence, but Jack doesn't care about that because he flexes on the writing front too. The religious themes and outright objections to ideas surrounding hypocrisy and agency on Bless Yourself are punchy and relevant, while the mix of satire and frustrated inspiration on Archbishop Harold Holmes is an indictment of those who use faith as an instrument for personal gain. It's Rough on Rats, if you're asking, may be his most outwardly global track here, setting his sights on current affairs and juxtaposing it with how rats have it, but it also doubles as a metaphor for the disenfranchised and impoverished, as Jack viciously attacks those who complain about first world problems. But just because he tackles heady themes doesn't mean that he's not having fun. Bombing Out, Missionary, That's How I'm Feeling, and Tonight Was a Long Time Ago, all are unified in Jack's simplistic approach to songwriting that calls back to the blues days of old, executing traditional arrangements with bravado and energy. Not all of it works all the time, but Jack's blend of satire, lovelorn nostalgia, and adoration for decades gone all amounts to a deeply engaging listen. The best work from Jack White across his 25 years plus in the music business often comes out of his ability to mix melodic aspects of his voice with scorching vocals that match the ferocity of his guitar, and No Name perfects that mix brilliantly. Out of the gate, Jack is authoritative yet restrained on Old Scratch Blues, saving his dynamic howls for Bless Yourself and It's Rough on Rats, while he slides into a crooner-like delivery on Underground and Terminal Arch Enemy Endling. And then there's the actual instrumentation on this record that is totally flawless in its purposeful imperfection. The riffs are just enough of a modification of Jack's previous works to stand on their own as new, refreshing takes on his style. And I gotta hand it to him, his solos are on fire with fury and brashness that's invigorating and exciting. The backing band also kills it on each track, so you'll never be bored with any performance-based component of this record. Because the bass, the drums, the keys, the percussion, everything really, are put together like they're in front of you on stage. And that allows us to connect to this record far more because humans made it and poured their blood, sweat, and tears into it. So you can't help but respect the talent that's on display. Though the only spot where I found the album to lag was on What's the Rumpus, I otherwise greatly enjoyed how Jack paced out this record. The run of Old Scratch Blues to Bombing Out on side A is untouchable, and the mystique of side B was alluring yet familiar, not diving into the experimental side akin to Boarding House Reach and Lazaretto too much. And the track lengths are totally efficient here, ranging from 2 to 4 minutes, but never overstaying their welcome because the arrangements and the track progressions are superior to most rock records of this age. There's no concern here for virality for Jack White, obviously, so you can always count on him to focus on what will make the song at the core of the composition pop, rather than go for what will hit in the mainstream. In this case, those two things just happen to meet smack dab in the middle on this project. Yeah, this is an excellent new set of tracks from the legendary Jack White. It's an all-killer, no-filler blues jam record that knows what it's setting out to do and accomplishes it with flying colors every chance it gets. But hey, that's just my perspective. If you're a Jack White fan, you're gonna love this album. And if you're in the market for a crunchy blues rock record with some visceral twists and turns, you gotta check this one out. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!